Welcome to What's Up With That, a podcast too. The podcast where we explore the intriguing intersections of theology, politics, and religion. From deep theological discussions to the latest political debates, we dive into a variety of topics that spark curiosity and challenge conventional thinking. Whether you're a seasoned believer or just God curious, our conversations aim to inspire reflection and provoke thought. Join us as we seek to understand the complexities of faith in today's world and ask, what's up with that? Our guest today is Rabbi Kelly Levy, Associate Rabbi at Congregation Beth Israel, right here in the city of Austin, state of Texas. Let's get started. This is your seat.
Yay!
Yay! All right. Kelly, how you doing, girl?
I am good. I'm here. How are you?
I'm doing great. It is so wonderful to have you join us on What's Up With That today.
Well, thank you for having me.
Hey, I'd have been crying if you had told me no. Absolutely.
Has anybody ever said no to you?
I would love to say no, but I might not be telling the complete truth. You are one of the younger up-and-coming rabbis in the city of Austin, Texas. You have made quite a splash, but you know that already, right?
Well, I've been here I'm in my 8th year here.
Okay.
And during my tenure, we've had a pandemic. We've had an arson at my synagogue.
Okay.
We've had a very big transition within the Jewish community, especially at my synagogue with rabbinic leadership. So there's just been a lot packed into my time here. So
okay, but you know about challenges and having
just a little bit
to work your way through.
Yeah.
I appreciate you. I appreciate you because I don't think you've ever told me no. The times when I've invited you to be a part of our worship services when I was serving as chaplain at HT, you said yes.
Of course.
I think I did the calling, right?
You sure did.
To invite you to serve on the board at IAC.
You did.
You said yes. And you even said yes when I called you to be a part of the podcast. So again, I say thank you. But I'm going to say that I love and appreciate you for all that you have done and all that you do. Not only in the city of Austin, but again, when I call, you respond and always in the affirmative. So thank you. We have in the last few weeks been talking about interfaith engagement. Started some of that conversation with Reverend Dr. Jill Horton.
You started with Daryl?
Started with Daryl.
That's like a very high bar that you started with.
That's nothing for you. Well, what you talking about? But we started with Daryl, and that was followed by Simone.
Oh my gosh.
Executive Director, and wanted to begin to deal with the Abrahamic traditions. Hopefully we'll engage some of the other faith traditions, but one coming from a Christian perspective, and then understanding, as we talk about interfaith, sometimes challenged. When I think of interfaith engagement, when I think of the connectedness within those Abrahamic traditions, and yet sometimes it seems like we are so far away.
That's putting it lightly.
Yeah, and just thought that it would be wonderful to engage in conversation around those traditions. And so I just want to start right there. From your perspective, what is the Abrahamic tradition, and how does Judaism fit into all of that?
Well, we're the first.
Okay.
We're the oldest.
All right.
You know, we've been around for a while. We've just celebrated Rosh Hashanah, the new year, and we are now in the year 5786. So
Wow.
we are just making our way through the years of history. And you know, when you think about the term Abrahamic faiths, it comes from Abraham, and Abraham in the Jewish tradition was the first of all of the Jews. He was the patriarch, and we all stemmed from him.
Can we say we all?
Yeah.
Who's the we all?
All of us in
Okay.
some capacity. You know, if you are a person of faith and you are connected with a faith tradition, somewhere in your tradition, Abraham resides.
Okay.
In Judaism, he is the one who started it for us. And in Torah, before he's Abraham, he's Abram. He is called by God to make his way to this promised land that God is going to show him. And I guess I could compare myself. He says yes. And he just picks up and makes his way over to the land that at the time we would call it the land of Canaan.
Okay.
The promised land that today we look at as the land of Israel. And he was the one that started it all.
Okay. And within the context of Christianity and Islam, as we study it and teach it, we would focus on those two groups who also have that lineage or that root
Sure.
of Abraham. Christian text starts technically New Testament, right? But for Christians, it's the entire Bible. It's inclusive,
Right.
of Hebrew text. So then that Jewish history is part of the Christian faith tradition as well as Islamic faith tradition.
Yep.
Yeah. Yet Judaism, as you say, Judaism is the first, right?
Some might say we're the OG.
All right, you're definitely that. When you look at time, you are definitely that. What is the Jewish perception of Jesus, and how is that different from the Christian perspective?
So you might get some different answers from different people, but
Okay.
the answer that I've often given and the answer that I feel is most truthful to my own experience and understanding of our history, Jesus is a person who was born a number of years ago and was not thought of as a prophet in the Jewish world. In fact, I believe at the time, historically speaking, Jesus was thought of kind of as a heretic. He was saying things that were a little bit divergent from what Judaism was teaching. And he was somebody who lived at a time and said a lot of really beautiful things, but is not viewed as more than a person who lived in historical times. And I know that in other faith traditions, I know, for example, in Islam, Jesus is considered to be a prophet, but not so in Judaism. And I think it's important to note that what Jews believe today, the way that we practice our religion, is not the same Judaism that we saw in Torah.
Right.
This is very much rabbinic Judaism. And when Jesus was born, he was doing some questioning of some of that practice. And so I think for a lot of Jewish history, it was hard to understand that somebody could come in and do things a little bit differently. Today, Judaism has branched out into different ways of observance and practice. And because of that, I think that perhaps people might have viewed Jesus differently had he come into existence, thousands of years later. Okay. But today, he was viewed as a person who said some really beautiful words and was a person who existed in history.
Okay, and that's also much of the reason is the reason, right? Because that he's not seen as the divine one,
Right.
Right? As he is in Christianity,
Right.
Because for Christians, for us, it's he's the divine one. He is one with God,
Right.
Right? And so that was part of the split because he was Jewish, right? And it was those who cannot. So then his followers became followers of the way, or his disciples.
Right.
Yeah. And first called Christian, I believe it was in Antioch, and it was not something that was intended to be inspiring or uplifting, right?
Right.
It was almost a form of ridicule. But it was something that sort of, you throw something against the wall and it sticks,
Right.
Right? And it sort of stuck. I'm going to go ahead and jump. You talked about the way that Judaism is practiced today. That was further down, but we're going to go ahead and look at that. How is Judaism practiced today? Because and I taught comparative religion, right? I did by chance tell folk though, when they start, oh, you teach it, can I ask some questions? Well, you can, but understand I go from a text.
Sure.
and not all texts are necessarily accurate.
Right.
Right? So you're going to keep me on point.
Well, I'll do my best.
Okay. There are three, right? Reform, Conservative, Orthodox.
There are three main branches, but I would say that there are additional branches that exist as well. And I often use the word branches rather than denomination.
Okay.
Because to me and to most Jews, Judaism stems from the same essentially foundation, the same roots, the same trunk. And then we've kind of changed the way that we observe and practice Judaism just in levels of observance. So in the 1820s, probably even earlier than that, but really the 1820s is when we really credit the beginning of the Reform movement. This was the first time that anybody came into the world and said, we want to practice Judaism differently, and we're going to actually start organizing.
Okay.
I'm sure that in the history of Judaism, there were people that wanted to practice differently, but it wasn't really until the early 19th century in Germany that a group of people came together to really solidify a different way of observing Judaism. And at the time, Jews were living in Europe, and they were living all over the world, but especially in Europe, they really didn't have a lot of access in the same way that other citizens had access. And they wanted to find a way to do that. So they changed the way that we practiced to look a little bit more like the people who were practicing other faiths around them. There was a desire to sit men and women together in more traditional settings, in Orthodox settings. Men and women sit separately. They brought in musical instruments. The really hot instrument at the time was the organ.
Okay.
Very hot. And so they wanted to bring in some elements of worship that made us look like the other people around us. And we also started to dress a little differently. We started to dress like the other people who lived in those areas. And we also found ways to incorporate the language of that area rather than having Yiddish or Hebrew. It brought in German, or when Reform Judaism came to the United States, it was bringing in English. It was having Reform Jews look like the other people that were surrounding them so they could be considered on the same level as others.
Okay. So how does that break out? Interesting, and I guess I've taught Reform, Orthodox, Conservative. I've never taught them in any way akin to denominations. That's interesting. And so there's more than one way to engage, practice Judaism.
Absolutely. And some who are in different branches of Judaism may say there is not another way to
and
practice.
would that be the conservative branch?
No, not conservative.
Or Orthodox?
More Orthodox.
More Orthodox, right.
And even in Orthodoxy, there's several different smaller branches that I would say exist. There's modern Orthodoxy, and there's ultra Orthodoxy, and the Haredim, the Hasidic Jews. There's so many different ways that people practice Judaism, even within Orthodoxy. And so for a long time, for most of Jewish history, there was one way to practice Judaism, but even that's not necessarily true, because as soon as Jews started to participate in the diaspora, when they left the Middle Eastern area, Judaism changed. The way that Jews viewed our observance and customs of the places in which we resided, it changed. You have Ashkenazi Jews who tend to be from more Eastern European countries. You have Sephardic Jews who tend to be from Northern Africa and Spanish countries. You have Mizrahi Jews. You have Jews from Yemen and Afghanistan and Iran. You have Jews from all over the world, which means they bring the cultures of those areas into their life as well. So most of the time when people think of Jews, they have this very stereotypical picture, and it's typically an Ashkenazi Orthodox Jew. But it's not true. Jews are from everywhere, and there's a lot of culture there.
Okay, and are they respected and honored regardless of where they fit into?
You're asking me a dangerous question.
Okay, I like danger.
No, you know, my experience in particular as a Reform Jew, as a female rabbi, I can go into a lot of places and be respected because of those things.
Okay.
And there are some Jewish spaces that I cannot be respected because my mother was not actually Jewish when I was born. She did not convert until I was older. I am multi-generation Jew on my father's side, but historically, Judaism only embraces matrilineal descent. The Reform movement embraced.
When you say matrilineal descent, what do you mean?
The mother is the person who gives you the religion. And so if your mother is not Jewish when you were born, then you're not Jewish. In the Reform movement, we embraced patrilineal descent in I think it was the 1980s. Might have been a little bit later than that. But this was when you could be determined to be Jewish even if your father was Jewish. And so I was born in 1986, and my dad is, like I said, multi-generation Jewish. And so I've never been anything but Jewish. Okay. My mom did convert when I was older, but you know, for all of these things that all of these identities that I wear, female, Reform, mother who didn't convert until I was 5 years old, all of these are reasons that somebody who is in a more observant practice of Judaism may not respect me. Wow. That's not true for everybody. I have a lot of friends who I have found in Orthodoxy and, of course, in the conservative movement as well, who do respect me, even with those different identities. Okay. So then, like many other faith traditions and practices, there can be some stuff some complications
on the inside that sometimes pits one against the other. Is that just the way the world is? That somewhere, wherever you are,
it's our deep-seated need to be right.
Okay.
We know what is the right way, and the right way is our way.
Okay.
And it creates friction.
And everybody has those kind of people.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Perhaps we wouldn't have war if we didn't have that.
If we didn't have that, yeah. And the fact that somebody has to be superior to the other. Yeah.
To prove their rightness.
That's unfortunate, right?
It is very much.
It's unfortunate. We'll go back to some of the practices a little later. Again, in teaching, and what I did, it's been a while. I guess a couple of years. You know, give me 6 months. It's been a while, right? I've been retired almost a year now. So,
almost a year.
So it's been a year since I've taught. So I went and got my text. And as I sort of did some refreshing, what I began to understand. Let's see, is that where I'm going? There is a phrase, and I don't have it right here, but this is what's in my mind, that when you talk about Jewish or Jewishness, that there is always a yes but. That there's something about truth, and there's a belief. Maybe help me with what's up with that yes but.
I mean, I'm not 100% sure what phrase you're thinking of.
Okay. Well, as I read it, the statement was the Jews search for truth, and in looking for that truth, that there's an openness to the stories of others.
Well, I would say there's a real desire within Judaism to ask questions.
Okay.
It is very much a part of our practice, is asking questions to find whatever that truth may be. It's connecting with others through asking questions. And whereas I know there are some faith traditions that questioning anything is not really welcome.
Right.
But not so in Judaism. We're supposed to ask questions.
Okay.
We're supposed to find out what is real out there as best as we can, knowing that sometimes the answer to those questions is, I don't know. And I have people all the time who ask me questions, and I have to say, I'm going to have to get back to you because I don't know.
Right.
But it's a way to find something as best as we can that is real.
Okay.
So maybe that's not what you're looking for. In that.
I'm looking for, as I read the statement, there was a sense of that the complete truth, the total truth, does not rest with me. That there's potential for other truths out there. So I ask the questions. I engage in the conversation.
So there's a phrase called this. Was it a Hebrew phrase that you were looking for? I can give you a Hebrew phrase that is in that vein. It's machlochet lashem lashamayim, which is argument for the sake of heaven. And the idea behind this is that when you engage in conversation, whether it's an argument or a debate or just a conversation, that there should be an intention and purpose behind it. That you're not just arguing because you feel like arguing, but because there's a deeper meaning behind what you're looking for. So when you see people studying Torah in a yeshiva, which is a house of study, you see it looks like people are yelling at each other because they're trying so hard to make their point. But really what it is that you're trying to find what might be the right point. And when you look at a text of Talmud, you'll see that there are lots and lots and lots around the page of commentary. And some of the commentary contradicts each other, but they've included even the minority opinion because even that opinion is valid and important to be seen. So the idea is that you are engaging in these conversations and perhaps arguments with the purpose of really trying to figure out the deeper meaning behind it.
Okay.
But it's done with intention. It's done with respect. It's done with the ultimate goal of meeting a person where they are and understanding who they are and understanding their beliefs a little bit better.
Yeah, and so it sounds like you're saying, and they do it with much passion.
There can be some passion.
If you were not aware, you would not know that the respect is there because you say, "Gosh, what's going on here?"
You could say there's a lot of yelling happening right now.
You mentioned Torah. You mentioned Talmud. I think most would know that your sacred text is Torah. You mentioned Talmud, and there is Mishnah. So what are those sacred documents, and how are they used?
So there's a lot of different rabbinic literature that exists. There's different time periods that it came into being. The first of the rabbinic literature that came into existence was called Mishnah. And Mishnah is known for being kind of terse, and it's meant to extrapolate verses of Torah and help us understand what it means a little bit more. We always talk about with Torah, there's a lot of white space in between the letters and the words, meaning there's a lot there that we don't really understand. We were given a very clear example of something, but there's a lot of gray that comes with some of these examples. But Mishnah sought to explain it a little bit more. And then Mishnah was completed, but we needed a little bit more explanation. So additional text was written called Gemara. And you put the Mishnah and the Gemara together, and it becomes Talmud. And then Talmud also needed a little bit more explanation. And so we have a bunch of commentators from sages from thousands of years ago who wrote more about the Mishnah and about the Gemara. And they gave explanations, and they connected this text to this text and said, that's what they really meant by this verse. All of this is just adding layer upon layer of how to really understand what are we supposed to derive from our sacred text. That's just Talmud, and Talmud has many, many volumes, and there are pages and pages and pages. And then you add more to that. There's also Midrash, which is interpretive stories. I've heard it referred to as rabbinic fan fiction. It's just more ways to understand our sacred text. How do we really come to see what Torah is telling us, and how do we live by it today? And we even have more rabbinic commentary that comes out for all of the years since then, and still to this day.
And so, and all of those documents were developed by Jewish scholars. Hillel, Gamaliel, Moses,
Maimonides.
Thank you.
You can call him his acronym, Rambam.
But it was all of those. I would say they were Jewish scholars.
Yes.
Those who are part of the experience.
Yes.
And that's what gives credence.
Interestingly, though, there are some names that are included in the text that are considered either apostates or they didn't necessarily have a great status within the Jewish community after certain things they made, like Elisha ben Abuya. His name tends to be forgotten from the history books, but he was a well-known scholar and rabbi who had brilliant things to say, but he later became an apostate, and so he.
When you say apostate, can you help us?
He kind of left Judaism. He came to realize that there was another way of existing, and so but before he left, he had participated in offering commentary, and so he is often referred to as acher, meaning the other. But they do still include his commentary in some of these texts. And I guess key for me is they are people contributing to the Torah, helping not to the Torah, but to the commentary after Torah.
To the commentary after Torah.
Yeah.
And so that commentary after Torah, does it relate back to Torah?
Absolutely. What they're doing is taking text from Torah.
Right.
And seeking a further explanation of what it means.
And they're seeking that from community, from persons within,
from people who are learned, people who are scholars, people who had studied this for many, many years,
and also Jewish.
Yes.
And that's but also
feels like that's the really important point here.
On some levels, yes.
Yes.
And for me, I say yes. I have been doing a lot of, and I guess in seminary I did quite a bit of reading, James Cone, liberation theology, right? Specifically, Black liberation theology. And somewhere, not many gravitate, right, to those scholars. That speak to an oppressed condition and an experience, right? And the value of hearing those who are part of the experience, right? As you so just pushing that from that perspective, that it does have value, because as I understand it within Jewish community, and would I be wrong to say that it sort of almost supersedes Talmud?
It would
Torah?
depend on who you ask. But I
Okay.
would say that in most progressive Jewish spaces, and truthfully in a lot of more Orthodox spaces too, community is invaluable. It is
Okay.
just one of the most important parts of being Jewish, is that idea of being part of this kahal, this community. And there's this very important concept of being part of Am Yisrael, the people of Israel, and being bigger than just your own self. You are
Okay.
part of perhaps the synagogue, but then you're also part of an entire Jewish people. You are part of all of that.
Okay, and that becomes important, though, right? That also roots your identity,
Absolutely.
right? Your kids don't grow up wondering, where am I in this faith tradition, right?
Especially not my children, who have no choice but to be very much a part of the Jewish community.
Okay. Again, giving it, that's the value. That's how you maintain the stories, the history,
Especially the history.
and because for Judaism, what we understand as we look at Hebrew Bible, that's an experience. That's a lived experience. Is that right?
The history of the Jewish
history,
people. Yeah, it's
yeah.
why we retell it all the time. We do Torah study every single week and tell the same stories. But the idea is that you've lived a whole year since you've heard this story last, and you've had different experiences and new experiences, and you've had an opportunity to see this in a totally different perspective. But we have to retell it again because it's important to keep retelling it. It's the whole point of the Passover Seder. We come together for Passover and we retell the story. That is what we do to continue our lived experience moving into the future, and to know that there will be Jews in the future. That the generations that came before us did this so that we could be here now, and we do this now so that the next generations can come after us.
So there's a valuing of that history.
Absolutely.
It's not
It's
something.
crucial.
It's not something that I'm going to set aside. Oh, time that was back then. No, it happened so that we can be where we are now.
Yes, and that
Okay.
is it is a critical part of our Jewish experience.
Okay, so then when we talk about God,
Food, just a minor subject.
because there within Judaism, there's not the concern of a personal salvation,
Right.
or of I'm going to say mystic salvation of a heaven, of an afterlife, right? What's most important?
Being here in this moment and doing the work that we're doing now to make the world that we're living in a better place. This is where it gets a bit complicated, because the concept of a Messiah certainly exists in Judaism, whereas in Christianity there's a belief that the Messiah, who is Jesus, will come again. In Judaism, we don't believe that the Messiah has been here yet, and we're
Right.
still waiting on that day. But this is where there's a divergence of Reform Judaism to conservative Judaism to Orthodoxy. I couldn't really tell you necessarily about conservative Judaism, but in Orthodoxy, in most Orthodoxy, there's a common belief that the Messiah is this person that we are waiting for.
Right.
And certain branches of Orthodoxy will say that we need to do this, and this in order for the Messiah to come. We need to do all these things on this specific checklist in order to get this Messiah here. In Reform Judaism, we've re-embraced the concept of Messiah, and rather than say that we need to wait for this person to come and create this messianic era that's beautiful and perfect and wonderful, we need to do the work now to create that beautiful world. It's up to us to engage in social justice, in acts of gimilut chasadim, acts of love and kindness, of tzedakah, of righteous giving. We need to do that work now to create that, because wouldn't it be great if a person came and fixed the world for us? But since we don't know when that's going to happen, we need to do the work now.
Okay. Is it also a sense that the God or God is a God who acts in history? I.e., God told Abram to get up and go, and I'm going to create a covenant with you, and this is what the covenant is, right? The God who told Moses to go and liberate the Israelites from the Egyptians. The God who once liberated, helped them fight battles. The God who was with them acting in history in the now.
The God who also wanted to obliterate them multiple times because they didn't listen, they were whining, they were being petulant children, let's not forget that.
Okay. Okay. And so how does that weigh?
Which part? The God who
Both
led us out of Egypt and freed us from slavery, with the God who 5 minutes later was very frustrated and said, I'm just going to get rid of all these people.
Yeah.
That's humanity, right? That's what it means to be human, to have this very loving, compassionate side of you, and then to be so frustrated with the other drivers on I-35 because they just won't get out of the way. And you have both of these feelings at the same time. And it's just a reality of what it means to be human. And as humans in Judaism, we believe that we are created b'tselem Elohim, in the image of God. And so these very real feelings that we see in God and Torah are the feelings that we as humans have.
Okay.
That's the same reality, that you can have these two somewhat contradictory things happen at the same time.
Okay.
I'd like to think of God as this more compassionate, loving, merciful deity. And then I've seen a lot of strife in our world. And I've seen a lot of terrible things happening in our world. And I wonder, where is that compassionate God? I question where that is. I think it's such a personal experience, though. It's a very...
Sorry about that.
It's okay. It's a very personal experience and spiritual experience to have your own relationship with God.
Okay.
I think one of the things that is so spectacular about being Jewish, we talk about being B'nai Yisrael, the children of Israel. And this is really a reference to Jacob, whose name changes from Jacob to Israel, Yisrael. And the name Yisrael means to struggle with God. This happens after Jacob has had this all-night wrestling match and is now considered this person who has wrestled with God and has overcome that. That there's a lot of commentary on that story. Was this a physical wrestling? Was it an internal wrestling? I look at it as, we come from a person who struggled with God. We are considered children of a person who struggled with God. We struggle with God. And whether that means believing in God, struggling with our own relationship with God, feeling like that relationship with God has been challenging, that God hasn't shown up for us in the way that we needed God to be there. Whatever it may be, it's okay to have those feelings. And we should have those feelings, because the belief you had as a 5-year-old is not going to be the same as you had when you're 35, and it shouldn't be. You've lived 30 years since that time.
Okay. Is there a sect that would say you've lived 30 years since that time? Is there, or are there any of the laws, right? We talk about the laws that were given to distinguish a Jewish community,
right,
from other communities.
Well, and I will say that especially in the Reform world, we struggle with the idea of being set apart.
Okay.
At least I do, because I think it creates a kind of hierarchy with humanity. And I don't love that, because I look at all of us as humans, and I don't think that just because I'm Jewish, I'm chosen. We love to use the language because it's fun, but I don't believe that I am different or above anyone or set apart from. I believe that we're all humans, and that is more important to me than being set apart. When it comes to so many of the laws that have become part of Jewish practice, those are all rabbinic, because we can't do a lot of the laws that are associated with Torah.
Okay.
More than half of them are about sacrifice. And I'm sorry, but I'm not bringing sacrifice back.
You're not bringing sacrifice back?
No, I'm not.
Okay.
No, thank you.
So somewhere we need to distinguish. And so when we make those distinctions, does that mean we let go? Or do we reinterpret what it means to sacrifice so that it happens in other kinds of ways?
Like the actual physical sacrifices that exist?
And maybe it's not the actual physical animal sacrifices where you are getting a lamb and 5 goats, and you're going to tuck and you're going to.
I'm not a farmer. Nope, no thank you. Okay. That is work that I could never do.
Okay.
So when sacrifice ceased to exist, we had to create something to do. We had to figure out a way to still offer our gratitude to God, to offer our teshuvah, our repentance when we've done something wrong, which is what sacrifice gave Israelites the opportunity to do. But when we became part of the Jewish world as Jews rather than Israelites, because to me that's the distinction. Israelites followed the rules of Torah that included sacrifice, and then we became Jewish when the rabbinic era started.
When you say the rabbinic era, help me.
I mean after 70 CE, when the second temple is destroyed.
Okay.
And the only place that you could offer sacrifices was in that temple in Jerusalem. And when that temple was destroyed, there was no way to do sacrifice anymore. So what did they do? They had the rabbis came into the world, and they started telling us, this is how we can exist now. This is how we can worship God. This is how we can offer that gratitude. Here's how we can repair the damage we've done from a sin or from making a mistake of some kind. And it's through prayer. It's the words that we use during the High Holy Days, during Yom Kippur, Rosh Hashanah, is through repentance, prayer, and charity, we can make the world whole again. So it's not in the physical act of a sacrifice, but it's in the physical act of giving to others, of praying to God, of making right the wrongs that we've committed.
Okay, so it still brings it almost back to a relational kind of piece.
Very much.
As well. I got a question for you. Within the confines of, and I won't say Christianity, sometimes it seems as though we really point the finger at the Pharisees. Were the Pharisees bad people?
I mean, I wasn't around then. I don't know.
Okay. Because as you look at the second temple period, right?
Yeah.
There was also that struggle. You have the period of the judges, then you come up with the theophany, strictly God talking, and all through all the changes, and you have this period where nobody hears his voice, right? And it's a struggle to continue to try to find out what it means to be Jewish and what it means to keep Torah, right? And that involved.
And this is
Pharisees
when they didn't know.
And others as well, right?
Yeah, this is when there wasn't a clear path.
Okay.
This is there were exiles happening, and the exiles happened to the Jews because they were told very specifically how they were supposed to practice, and then they didn't do that, and then they ended up exiled.
Yeah.
And then they would come back, and then they would make a bunch of mistakes again, and then they would leave again, and then they would come back. And then, eventually they started to disperse, and then they weren't coming back. And everyone had to figure out how to practice this faith now, and how to do it within a different space, a different community that had pre-existing rituals.
Yeah.
And, Torah is very clear that you're not supposed to do these very specific things that were probably practices of those areas. For example, where we get the whole rule about tattoos from.
Okay.
You can't scar or injure your skin in any way, which was aligned with a tattoo when there's a deceased person. So essentially, there was a practice that at that time in that region that if somebody had lost a person in their life, they would scar or mark their skin like a tattoo. And so in order to not be like them, we had to do these things to set ourselves apart. So when the Pharisees come into play just when the world is changing at this point and nobody's really sure what they're supposed to do. So I'm sure that they were considered very much bad guys by a lot of people. But I also think that they probably were doing some very right things at that time, trying to help the Jews figure out how to move forward in the world.
And it goes back to that somebody has to point a finger at somebody.
Always.
By not following and by seeing law, a lot of folk like to point to Leviticus and this is what you can't do and it says. By not adhering to that was written so many years ago, does it make you less holy? I'm going to say from a Jewish perspective?
Me personally, no, because this Torah was written during when the people were living in an agricultural society. And we have come so far from that. And I find holiness in a lot of other ways. I don't need to take, a turtle dove to the altar for the priest to,
And I'm going to wring his neck.
like cut his neck open and,
cut on,
I don't need to do any of that. I'm good. Because I think you can find holiness in a lot of other ways.
Okay.
I think that we connect with people in a way now that you would have never been able to connect with people at that time.
Okay.
I think we have the ability to talk to people across the world and bring their cultures to us. And we can do that, and it's a good thing.
Okay.
We don't have to be isolated.
Okay. Would you say, maybe it's time makes a difference?
And the evolution of humanity.
Okay.
Not just the physical evolution, which that can be a whole other conversation, but the evolution of what it means to be human. To understand and embrace that it doesn't matter, to me at least, what somebody's sexual identity is. To have different skin colors, to have a different way of practicing their faith, that we can still connect on the human level. And it doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with another person for being different than you. And I feel like so much of what we've learned over the last many centuries of the world is that people were afraid of other people.
Okay.
They were afraid of somebody who was different than them, and they didn't know how to bring them into their world. And we celebrate these things now. We celebrate somebody who maybe even 50, 60 years ago would have been put into a very specific box and not allowed.
Okay.
So I think that as humanity has evolved and become, I hope, more embracing of what it means to be your genuine self, there is holiness in that.
Okay. Awesome. That's a lot. And what I'm hearing, and for me, I'm going to say continuously, is a faith tradition practice that is rooted in a holy concern for the other. There's not the excessive focus on I in terms of I got to get to heaven and I got to live right so that I can get to heaven. But what am I doing so that we all can be okay?
Right.
What am I doing? And if you want to get to heaven, that's where you're looking to go to. What are you doing so that we all can get to heaven collectively and not so much because of practices, but because of the love of I'm going to say the love of God.
It could be, and it could also be the practice of loving God by doing good for others.
Okay.
You know, the basic tenet of Judaism is ve'ahavta l'reacha kamocha, love your neighbor as yourself.
Mm-hmm. And that's one of the highest commands.
It's everywhere. You know, it's pretty much the basic tenet of most religions. But in Judaism, it is very much one of the most important things that you can do, which is caring for the other people in the world. And when we look at the history and of we look through Torah and we see the different ways that people are identified, the people who are considered the most vulnerable within the community were the orphan, the widow, and the stranger in your midst, the person who's not you but is within you. That's everyone else. So if these are the people who are considered the most vulnerable, then we should be caring for every single person who we come in contact with.
Okay, so is that the radical hospitality that we often see within Judaism?
Yeah, I think so. We want to make space for everybody.
So is the greatest sin, perhaps not all those things we see that you're not supposed to do, is the greatest sin perhaps what we do to others or what we don't do for others?
It is, in Judaism, if you sin against another person, it is as though you are sinning against God as well. Because as I said, we are B'Tselem Elohim, created in this image of God. And if I do something to you, you have God within you, and I'm offending God at the same time. And so how we treat one another is the most important thing. It's the imperative of the world.
Okay, so that does then put essentially community above all else.
Absolutely.
In a very real way. It puts above doctrine, above Torah. It's perhaps rooted there, but if I fail.
I would say during rabbinical school, I had the great honor of serving a small congregation in Albany, Georgia.
All right.
Yeah, good old Albany. And one of the longtime members there, he was a teacher in the religious school, and there were fewer than 10 kids in the whole religious school. And he usually would teach the older kids. And one of the things he loved to teach them about Judaism is that in Judaism, we believe in deed over creed. It's about the actions that we do and participate in every day and how that impacts the others around us more than anything else.
That's, for some, hard to do?
Probably, especially because even within the Jewish community, there are Jews who wouldn't treat me with kindness, which is interesting because it goes against the basic tenets of what Judaism stands for.
Okay.
But I can't make somebody change their mind after years of learning that Reform Jews are wrong, that I can't, as a woman, be a rabbi, that my voice is the problem. I can't just undo that. But I firmly believe that if we can sit down and have a conversation and you can learn from me and you can see that not only am I a person who is also learned, I'm a human at the most basic level. And that is enough for us to connect over.
Okay. And that becomes it.
I would hope so.
Okay. Interesting. Can I ask, where is the place of God in Judaism?
Within each of us. It's within each of us, and it's up to us to determine what that is. I think that people see and find God and experience God in a multitude of ways. They may not identify it that way. They may not see God the same way that I do, and that's okay. They should see God the way they do, and the way they feel God. You sit in a classroom with third graders, and they're all going to tell you a different explanation and definition of God. And that's good because it means they're thinking about it, but it also means that they're feeling it. You know, I find that my experience of God is elevated when I'm with others. That my interactions with other people is where I really experience God. The first time that I can say with real definitive fact for myself that I experienced God was when I went to visit my grandmother on her deathbed.
Okay.
And she had been in and out of lucidity the entire time we were there, not really sure who we were, not really sure what was happening with her, feeling, having a lot of hallucinations. She was at the end of her life. And then we were getting ready to leave, and we had been there for a few days, and this was a few states over, so it was a long drive. And we were leaving pretty early in the morning, and we went to say goodbye, and she was so lucid in that moment. She knew exactly who we were. Okay. She knew exactly why we were there. She was able to say her final words to us and give us an immense amount of love, and we could return it to her. Mm-hmm. And to me, that was God stepping in so that we could have that moment with her. There was no way that this person who I loved so much was going to be able to do that unless someone could help her get to that point.
Okay. So is that finding God in each and every moment?
Maybe not every moment.
Not, and that might be not every moment, but in those places and spaces.
Yeah. Just
that
like
touches our heart.
It's just like the in between the white spaces in between the letters in Torah. That's where you find God too, in those moments.
Okay. And that's the realness of God.
At least to me.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you for sharing. Insightful. In many ways, interesting. And I'm just thinking, did a podcast with Dr. Carruthers, Austin Presbyterian Seminary, as we talked about Jesus. Mm-hmm. And Jesus is his words. Jesus is to you who he is. He's who and what you need him to be for you. So where you find him is in those places where he gives value for you. Mm. Interesting. Thank you so much. Want to acknowledge October 7th, just a couple of days ago, and all that happened in Israel 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And also want to, as we acknowledge that, continue to lift families up in prayer, but there's also celebration today.
I'm waiting. We've been waiting for this war to be over.
Yeah, then how do you feel in these moments as we look at the ending of this 2-year war when so many lives were lost, right? Certainly we pray for the victims who were taken hostage.
It's going to be, watching when they come home is going to be emotional, to say the least. It's been a very hard 2 years. Yeah. I can only imagine what so many have been going through during that time. I've been to Israel. I was there 5 weeks after October 7th in 2023, and I've lived in Israel, and I've been there multiple times, and the experience of being there so soon after the events, it was unreal. I mean, this is a place that is a living, breathing ecosystem of life. Mm-hmm. And it didn't feel that way at all. 5 weeks after, it was just, the pain was palpable everywhere you went. And so much has happened since that time, and the devastation and the loss of life that has been across the board. It's heart-wrenching. And, I really want this to be over, and I want it to be over for good.
Yeah, and certainly that's the prayer. And as I watched a few minutes today, the celebration on both sides. right?
Everybody's ready for this to be done.
Everybody's ready for this to be over. It's been a tragedy for so many, and for me, I can't certainly lift up that day and all that happened.
Yeah.
But as you say, so much and so many lives, children and babies, and just it's nice that it's coming to an end. So I wanted to lift that up, and also just want to ask you your feelings as we are drawn to today, and yes, and the prayer that it is truly an end.
I have been praying for peace every day of my life. It's part of being Jewish is prayers for peace. Every single time we have services, we come together for Shabbat, for any holiday, for a community event, there's almost always a prayer for peace. And those prayers have been, it feels like, largely unanswered for the last 2 years. So if we can make not just peace, but lasting peace,
Mm-hmm.
that would be living Judaism right there.
Okay. And prayers are going up. Prayers are going up for, again, as I say,
Yeah.
both sides.
Thank you.
Both sides. That those who have been hostages return home. For those Palestinians who have lost homes and so much, that there can be a rebuilding. And that life for all can be meaningful. And what's that word came in? Fun, right? That it can truly be lived in abundance. So,
Amen.
any last words on what it means to be Jewish? What does it mean to be a part?
What does it mean to be Jewish? It
Yeah.
means to be part of community. It means to find joy in even the smallest moments. It means to create ritual around being a part of humanity and finding love with one another and with experiences and perhaps even with God. Being Jewish is about joy and living joyfully and working towards creating a better world.
Awesome. Thank you for being my friend.
Thank you for having me. It's an honor to be here.
I'm glad you took the time and put me on your schedule.
Thanks for getting me away from my kids.
No, I'm not going to take credit for that. Your husband might find me and say, "What?" And you kept us too long.
No. It's good.
Awesome. To our viewers, our prayer is that on this day, that you have heard something that has been inspirational, that you have a better understanding of, for those who are not Jewish, for what it means to be Jewish as you celebrate your own faith tradition, and loved, as Kelly talked about, the value of community, that community that does not set you apart from anyone, but that allows you to engage with everyone lovingly, compassionately, and with a full heart. And that means in kindness, in love, and treating everybody the way that you yourself would love to be treated. Hopefully, if nothing else, that you have had a stirring that's beginning in your mind, that you have engaged in a conversation on this evening that's caused you to pause and ask, what's up with that? Join us on our next episode. And before I go there, press subscribe, press like, and share. Press subscribe, like, and share. Can I say that again?
Is it press subscribe, like, and share?
You got it! And you do it. So until next time, be blessed.